Today, on Painting Our Monsters, we're going to be going out to West Texas.
So the first thing you're going to notice about my technique this week is I did what's called an underpainting. And that is just a guide that you do underneath your final painting to give you an idea of where it's going to be. First, I worked up this little image in pencil, just kind of drawing on there. And then I went and put in just the kind of basic hues that I wanted. Colors that if they showed through wouldn't be so big a deal for me. Now the second thing you're going to notice is that's my son Xander over there, and he's painting along with us too. We like to do a lot of our painting together, so he's working on something and I'm working on something. With this underpainting, it's kind of nice because you kind of know you can just focus on the objects themselves instead of focusing on trying to build the composition in your head. And it's fun to just kind of go for it and build that composition, but I like this underpainting. So the first thing I did was just lay in some blue of the sky. Now there's actually some purple up top, and now the blue's down below. I wanted to get a little bit lighter, so I put in some white. Now I'm just blending it out. It doesn't really matter to me if I cover up these plateaus, because those are just shapes. As long as I remember where they're going to be, then I know this is going to be close enough to what I want, and that's all that really matters. It's good to just keep blending these out, having a good time, just letting all that kind of go together. Okay, then I'm going to come in with some white for clouds. There's all sorts of different ways to do clouds. I'm trying to learn all the different ways I can. Now with this, what I'm trying to do is I'm really trying to figure out how do I get the tops of them clouds. I love those white, just breakaway parts, but it's not working for me. So anytime one of my little attempts doesn't happen, that's all right. I just kind of keep working with a round brush and going in circles and kind of smoothing it out. We're just trying to get some motion up here in the sky. One thing I've learned is that it's better to go for, think about a whole sky. Think about what the image you want to be. If you try to just put in individual clouds, it doesn't work so well. And I'm just experimenting here, trying different techniques. Here I'm tapping it in. Is that going to give me the technique I want? But you'll notice I'm getting white down on the bottom. So what I did here is I turned my brush upside down. And by golly, look at this. I got the white where I want it, the top of the cloud, just because I turned the brush upside down. Now that's letting the brush, that white land on the side of the brush is really what's making that white for me. And I'm just so delighted to get this effect. I really love just going outside and looking at clouds. Sometimes out in Texas, and West Texas especially, the sky just goes on forever. There aren't hardly any trees. So when you look up at these clouds, they just go on and on and on and on, and they'll kind of all layer in front of each other. So I like to have that in mind when I'm painting these, you know. And now what I'm trying to do is just put in layers to give depth. So that cloud's in the back. By putting this white in the area of blue, we send it further back. It makes it look like it's further up in the sky. Here's another one coming in here. Just going to send that on in. And that is sending the cloud behind it further back. So you come in with another one. You got to hesitate. You got to find the right spot. And then once you got it, you just got to go. You just got to make these things. You can see I'm using some of that lighter blue that I had made earlier. To this white is giving us a little bit of a boundary here. So now it looks like, okay, this cloud's fading all down. But it's just an illusion. It's just something we're going for. We know clouds are big white puffs in the sky. So make some puffs, you know. Now you can see my board here wiggling. I think that's okay. I think it's fun to work with all these different methods and just let the art go, you know. So I'm, again, just layering in more clouds. I'm thinking that this plateau is going to be here, and it's going to be dark. So if I get a lot of light down here, it should make a really good contrast and really make these plateaus shine out, okay? Now that I've gotten those ridges about where I want them, I'm coming in here with a bit of a dirty brush, and I'm just kind of tapping out the middle of the clouds. So it looks like the top of them starts white, and then it fades down below. There, we need a little bit more white, so we just come in with a ridge. And I'm knowing, oh, that part's going to be pretty close to my kaiju. Now, my favorite part of clouds is the tops of them look like they're just these evaporation, I don't even know what. You can see all these little flecks and fluffs at the top of clouds sometimes. And the only way to get that right is to just touch the brush just one time. Touch the canvas just one time with the brush. And if you can do that, then you just get these little effects. Now, I think that sky's good enough, so we're going to go ahead and move on. Now these plateaus, I'm building 2 of them, and I'm putting them in the distance, and it's a clear day, so we're not worried about any sort of, atmospheric effects or any of that. We can see these 2 things because all the moisture we have is up in the atmosphere. So we're just laying in those shapes, and now we're coming in with some lighter colors and just trying to put some ridges in there, a little bit of definition. A lot of times these things stick up above the tree line, or the trees only grow on one side of them, so you want to fill that in. Now, moving ahead a little bit, I'm touching my sort of forest. This is a forest that grows along a valley here, river, and these are all cottonwoods. Now, I am sorry to say that the camera work was so bad on this kaiju that we had to move past it. So he's in there, and now we're putting in some trees in front of him. I think when we're building a sense of scale, it's really important to put something in front of the kaiju. These things, they don't feel like they sit in front of each other if they're just all stacked right on top of each other. What you need to do is add a little bit of overlap, so we know, okay, well, now this big guy, he's behind this brighter green forest, right? Maybe we can't quite tell that he's in front of the darker green, but that's okay. We can tell that he's in front of the mountains, he's in front of the sky, but he's behind those trees because we're covering him up. And that sets him in the landscape, back there somewhere, walking along this riverbed. Maybe he emerged up out of this river and was, maybe it went dry. He was used to being able to get a little bit of a sip all summer long, but this river finally went dry. So he sprung up here, and he's walking through. What's going on? Maybe he's looking right at us. He's looking over these trees. So now we're just dabbing in a little bit of more structure closer up. Okay, now on my underpainting, you'll notice that my rock wall didn't go all the way to the right. But seeing him over here makes me think, you know what, I want to push him back as far as I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and start laying in these sort of blocky shapes for these stones. I want to get all of this color covered up in the foreground. I haven't touched any of it, so I can really work back and forth as much as I want here. What's important is that I just start to establish these shapes. I'm coming over here now and just giving me the bottom of these blocks, right? This is where they're setting on the ground, okay? So now we're just squaring them up. They're big rectangular chunks. These are blocks we see, bricks all over Texas, cut out of the stone and used to stop, people from walking a little too far, trucks from driving off, or maybe just because they needed to flatten out a place, and so they cut up all these big old stones. So it's a wall, but each of these rocks is, 4 feet long, a couple feet high, so they're big things. And each one's got its own little personality. So now I've just mixed some colors, and I'm trying to just come in here and define each one. And that, by not fully blending the colors, you get a little bit more of this gradient, like real stone. So it's a real easy way just to kind of give it a natural effect, make it look like a real material, because we're not trying to get everything perfect. We're just coming in and putting in a little bit of shape. What's fun about painting is we're just trying to make illusion. We're just trying to do just enough to make you think you see what you're seeing. So what these blocks need now is they need some shadow. And I'm thinking this shadow is always so hard for me, but I know it's coming from up above, so it's going to be darker down below. Maybe it's coming from behind the stone wall. So we're just coming in and filling in the cracks between each of these huge blocks. And just coming along, putting a little bit of dark. It can be scary because you've done all this work and now it's like, well, I don't want to mess it all up. But remember, you can always just scratch it out or go back over it and just keep moving along. You can see here I dropped in some shadows in the front, and I really think that sets those rocks right up in the landscape. So now it's like, oh yeah, I can see them. They're casting a shadow, right? And now, since the shadow's down below, we're coming across the top, and we're just putting a little bit of glint of the sun, kind of trying to mirror the same glint. There's light on top of this fill out here. There's light on top of these plateau. So let's put some light on top of these bricks, right? And I'm just using white with that. And if it picks up a little bit of that pink, well, that's all the better. Maybe some of these pieces have little fractures on them where the light shines through, or little crystals. Any of that stuff we don't really need to worry about. We just need to make some detail, some indication of detail, really. And then your brain will do all the rest of the work. And that's what we want to do. We want to make paintings that people say, wow, how did he do that? And we say, well, you were part of that. You were part of what made that happen. So now I'm just putting in a little bit of white for just to give a little bit of contrast, to kind of maybe set these things off a little bit. we want them to look like these big chunks, you know. So now I'm thinking maybe the top's not quite where I want it. So let's give them tops that are a little bit more three-dimensional, a little bit more rectangular. Now, we could take our time to figure out the perspective on all these and line them out and have a vanishing point and all that, but really it's like if you've seen these stones, you know what they are. And so that's what this painting's for, is people who've seen these stones. So we're just putting some indication of a top on them, you know. Maybe they got some of that corner of a cube like we used to draw when we were kids, you know. There's a fun one. Look at that. That guy really sticks out. Maybe it's a little too dark, but that's fun. That tells the whole story right there. You look at that guy and you say, "Oh, I know who he is. He's one of these stones." And that about does what we need for them. So now we're putting a couple plants in front of there just to make this place look like somewhere that people have lived, things have lived. You know, this isn't a wall, this is a lookout place. Normally this guy's not here, so people come over here and lean past these stones and look out. And there's a couple of grasses that have kind of grown up in front of this wall. And again, that just helps set it in the painting. This painting is this rectangular window into another world we're making. And the way that works best is if all the pieces kind of fit together, which means we got to keep layering and putting in more and more detail. Now here you can see I put in some grass over there on the left, and now we're putting in just a little bit of this crushed granite gravel, just some sort of indication of, okay, this is somewhere where people might walk. This is a place where it's maybe they come through with a weed whacker every now and then, so people can come through here. And this is how I did that other side. I just like to put a glob of paint down on the bottom and then just pull it up with this knife here, and that just gives it some energy, you know. And it's like, you never see one blade of grass, you always see a bunch of them. So we just pull them on up. And this late in the year, they're all yellow, so that means it's not spring, it's late summer, it's fall maybe. So we're have a little bit of different color variation in there, and we're just putting, you know, grass goes all different sorts of ways, so we're just trying to move it all around. And I think that's looking about right.
Thank you for joining me today on Painting Our Monsters. I had a real good time painting this guy and painting that wall of stones. It's so much fun what we can do with lines and what the human brain is capable of understanding when you just give it the clues it needs. It was really great having you with me here today. I really appreciate it. And remember, our world is what we make it.